Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kate, or I go by AlwaysMoreGaming here on YouTube, and today we are wrapping up the year of 2023 with a tier list. So I did this last year. I'll be honest, it didn't really receive much attention, but I had a lot of fun doing it, a lot of fun going back over the games I played last year and putting together the video. Now, it was no masterpiece by any means, but it was a lot more editing than I'd ever really done before. So I had been really proud about how it turned out, and I decided I was going to do it again this year. Again, just because I like looking back on the games, trying to remember things about them, and for those who are interested, just to kind of give my general thoughts. So, as you can see here, we have 7 games that I played throughout the year of 2023. Now, honestly, I kind of forgot. Okay, let me back up for a second. I have a Google Doc that I tried to remember after every game that I finished to go in and fill out different things about it, such as how I felt about the story, the gameplay, if it was difficult, worth the price, etc., etc. And I only did it for 3 of the games that I played this year. So when looking back at the document, the Google Doc, I was like, there's no way. I've only played 4 games, because I went to update it after Hogwarts Legacy, and I was like, this does not sound right. And it wasn't. It was incorrect. I had played 7 games and just, forgotten to fill out the document before that. So we're just gonna jump right into it with our first game here, Assassin's Creed. Now, if you have been around the channel this year, anytime the first Assassin's Creed game is brought up, I never have kind things to say. It is not my favorite game by any means. I don't enjoy this game. I did not have fun playing this game, and I just have the hardest time coming up with basically anything positive to say about it, because I just disliked it so much. So, I played this game from January 3rd to February 4th, so very first game of the year, and I was just so disappointed. I can't even, explain it. So, starting off with the story, we follow the character of Altair. He is a very arrogant assassin. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember exactly what time he is from, but way back when. And we start off as Altair again. He's this very arrogant, very skilled assassin, and he makes a bad call, which ends up getting 2 other assassins injured. I think it actually ends up, does it get one of them killed, I think? Ends up revealing them, that to the people they'd been following. And because of this, he gets stripped of his rank and basically set back to noob level, and we have to complete all these different tasks to basically learn our lesson and rise back up through the ranks. So he's sent on all these different tasks to take out these different Templars, and as he progresses through, he starts to doubt what he's doing is the correct thing. And just before moving forward, this video is going to contain a lot of spoilers because I will be going over the full story. So, with that being said, we find out that our head honcho guy is not a good guy. He's been sending us after people that we didn't really need to be taking out. We didn't need to be assassinating. All for this piece. I think it's called an Apple of Eden or something like that. It's been a hot minute, so I apologize if that is incorrect. But we've taken out all these different people for this artifact, and now head honcho guy, who's in charge of the assassins, has it and he shouldn't. And so it's up to us to like defeat him so we can have that peace. But while we have Altair, in like current times, we have Desmond, who is played by Nolan North. And I love Nolan North because I love Uncharted. It's one of my all-time favorite games. So like I was like, oh my gosh, it's Nathan Drake. But anyways, we have this guy's name is Desmond, and Altair is an ancestor of his. And Desmond has basically been kidnapped by this company that has a machine called the Animus that will basically, using his DNA, can go back in time and help him to kind of relive his past. And by doing this, they're looking for something. Come to find out, they're looking for this artifact that Altair was trying to get away from head honcho. I can't remember the guy's name, so sorry. So game like ends very abruptly in the real world with Desmond, and Assassin's Creed 2 actually picks up exactly where that left off with Desmond, but we don't play with Altair anymore. For that, I am glad. So like with that being the story, I still found it very lacking. I saw the plot twist coming at the end that our boss was not the guy he was supposed to be, not the guy he pretended to be. I saw it coming that he wasn't a good person. I didn't find the story interesting enough to keep me engaged. The storyline felt very like repetitive. Like that's probably like the biggest word I'd use for this game is repetitive. We had to talk to like the same 3 guys to get like our mission details in different cities, and it was just the same thing every time. Go to these people, they will assign you your tasks, you go complete your tasks, you come back to this guy, then you go back to your home base, then you get sent out again, and it was just the same thing over and over again. You were completing the same, like, you didn't have to complete the same tasks every time, but basically it was the same group of tasks and you just had to choose between them, and that was how you had to complete so many in order to move forward. And I can't remember which task it was that I struggled with, but there was one that I just could not get, and it was very frustrating. And like I was glad when the game was over, and I hate playing games that make me feel that way, but unfortunately that's how it was. Now for gameplay, I found it really wonky, and I prefer playing with a gamepad. Now I play with an old PlayStation 3 controller because we have like a bunch of them. They are coming out of our ears. And I keep like telling myself, I'm gonna get like a PS4 controller. I never do it, but not that really makes much of a difference. However, Steam seems to prefer the Xbox like layout to things, so like that can kind of throw me off. But the gamepad layout for this game was even worse because the buttons were not labeled by like Xbox letters. They were labeled by number, and I did not know what button number 4 was or button number 6. And when trying to figure out which button did what and set these buttons up so that I felt it worked better for my controller, then I would accidentally like set something that I didn't mean to set that as. I'm like, I don't know. I just set something as number 9. I don't know what number 9 is. And the button that was number 9 before is now changed to button number 7. And I don't know what button number 7 does. Like, it was very bad. It was very poor. And Assassin's Creed 2 also had this button layout, but thankfully I knew what my buttons were from the first game, and I was able to basically copy them over. But it is very messy, very confusing. It also was very like touchy, like very sensitive, and it felt delayed. Now this game is pretty old. I'm struggling to remember exactly how old. I'm pretty sure Assassin's Creed 2 is like 14 years old. I think I have a note about it actually in my document. That's not the right game. I have it pulled up on my iPad, so I'm not talking away from the mic because I'm facing my second one. Yeah, so Assassin's Creed 2 is a 14-year-old game. And so I'm going to guess that Assassin's Creed is at least 15 years old, if not older. So, like, to a point, I understand. I'm playing it on a new computer with a newer controller. Like, I get it, but at the same time, like, it was very frustrating. Graphics, again, pretty outdated. I'm sure when the game first released, the graphics were pretty good, but, like, comparing it to games now, it is pretty difficult to be impressed. A lot of the textures were flat. Their faces looked kind of funky. The wind mechanics were really weird. Like, people's hair or Altair's robes would just go, like, flying, or they would, like, poof up around Altair really weird. The horses ran really weird. Like, and I feel kind of guilty, again, judging an older game for these things, because I'm sure at the time this was, like, state of the art. But it did not age very well. I found the audio really annoying. The women were all voiced by the same person. It was the same, like, the chatter were the same lines all of the time. I have it here. I understand it's 15 years old, but it was really annoying. As for difficulty, I found some parts of the game pretty easy, others unnecessarily difficult. Now, I'm having a hard time remembering what I thought in particular was necessarily difficult. I want to say it was the assassinations. I'm thinking I really struggled with assassinating. It was very clunky, not very smooth. I normally ended up giving myself away. The game time / the run time was 23.5 hours. I would wait for, as far as the price is, the game's only $20, but I would personally wait for it to go on sale. Now, Steam is having one of their biggest sales at the moment, and I actually got all of the Assassin's Creed games except for Valhalla and Odyssey on sale. I want to say during this sale a year ago, for $80. And there are some of the games, like brand new, that almost go for $80 once they are first released. So I would recommend, like, all of these games. Save your money. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't matter how much I love the game. I'm never going to recommend, like, Hogwarts Legacy, for example. I paid $60 for that game. I'm never going to tell somebody to go and willingly spend $60 on a game, because that is just outrageous to me. I think that is completely insane. So I'm going to always recommend to wait for these games to go on sale. However, I would not say that Assassin's Creed is worth the $20 that it is when it's not on sale. So there's that. I ranked this game a 3 out of 10. Could be considered pretty harsh, but I have not said a positive thing about this game other than the fact that Desmond / Altair is played by Nolan North. That is all that I have positive going for this game. And then I had just some, like, extra notes. So I procrastinated recording this game so bad because of how repetitive and not fun I found it to be. Especially towards the beginning. Like, the beginning was, like, probably the worst. The controls felt like they were very delayed. They were very touchy. There was this, like, group assassination that I found infuriating and caused rage quitting, and I had to Google the solution because I just did not understand. Like, it wasn't straightforward. I didn't know I had to... I think I was writing the notes for this game specifically as I was playing. I didn't know I had to look at documents from investigations. It wasn't made clear, nowhere said for me to do that I remember, so I didn't. And that's talking about that group assassination. A lot of the aspects of the game weren't made clear and led to extreme frustration, piled on top of the fact that I had no idea what any of these numbered buttons corresponded with on my controller. Like, I'm normally pretty good about knowing that, like, oh, this Xbox button converts to this PlayStation button, but I have no idea what these numbered buttons are. It's so frustrating. There were a lot of times I had to walk away from the game because of how frustrating it was, and there were numerous rage quits and breaks taken while playing this game because it was just so aggravating. So if we look at my tier chart here, I have them ranked 9 out of 10 out of 10 stars, 7 to 8 out of 10 stars, 5 to 6, 3.5 to 4, 0 to 3. I'm not gonna lie, I changed this to be 3.5 out of 4 because I didn't want to put Assassin's Creed there. I couldn't. I was like, I can't do it because it technically would have been 3 to 4 stars, which meant it would have gone here. And I don't want it there. I want it here. So I did that. I wouldn't recommend this game to anybody. Now, I know that this game is actually, when there was talk of, I think, Assassin's Creed 4, like a remake, going around, and then I was seeing a bunch of like social media posts about the original Assassin's Creed game, and a lot of people were really fond of it, saying, oh, I go back and play this game all the time, one of my favorite like nostalgia games. I totally understand that this game is like very special to a lot of people because of nostalgia reasons, but I am new to the series. I have not been playing it since it came out, and just even like comparing it to Assassin's Creed 2, which was probably one of my favorite games this year, Assassin's Creed 1 was awful, and I can't find it in me to focus on any of the positives of this game because I had a hard time finding them. I did not enjoy this game, and I don't know how else to say it. So, like, genuinely, I am so glad that there are people that can enjoy this game the way it deserves to be enjoyed. But at the same time, I can't stand this game, and I will never revisit this unless I absolutely have to. So, okay, so moving on to the next game, we have Rise of the Tomb Raider. Now, I played this game from February 7th to March 21st, and I really like this game. I always enjoy the Tomb Raider games. I had a lot of fun playing the first game last year, had a ton of fun playing the second game this year, and it was a lot of fun. It was very refreshing to have so much fun playing a game after Assassin's Creed. So we follow Lara Croft. Now, in the previous game, Lara Croft was on a boat. The boat went into, like, they were going after this island in order to study Yamatai, who is this like vengeful sun queen, and the island that she had been on had been cursed, and as soon as any like aircraft or ships or anything came within like a certain distance of the island, they crashed into the island and got stranded there. So Lara and her crewmates crashed onto the island, got stranded on the island or trying to find ways off the island, ended up breaking the curse, discovering what had happened. Well, now we come back to this game, like Lara and everybody were saved. Well, almost everybody was saved. They come back, and now Lara has that like sense of adventure. She's just looking for that next big adventure to take, and ends up diving into some research that her father had left behind. Basically, it was focusing on this artifact that was all about immortality, and I am struggling to remember what the artifact is called off the top of my head, but Lara is racing against this religious-based militia group called Trinity to find this immortality artifact first. Lara wants to find it to basically prove that her father's studies, everything that he worked for, was like that they were sound, that they were actual things, that there was proof, that there was evidence, because he had ended up taking his own life there at the end because a lot of people had ridiculed him and said, basically, you're chasing fairy tales, all that you're looking into is not real, you're crazy. And Lara was looking to restore her father's reputation. Now, before her father had passed, he had been dating, I don't really think it's ever made 100% clear, but basically dating a woman named Anna, and turns out, spoiler alert, that Anna is a part of Trinity. Anna is actually really sick, and her brother is basically the driving force behind getting this artifact because he wants to save his sister. It's really good. I really enjoyed this game. I found the story very immersive, very refreshing. It was really fun. There's this like built-in kind of side mission with Baba Yaga, and then there's also a DLC that comes with it called Blood Ties, which goes a little bit more in depth on Lara's dad, along with her mother, who had passed when Lara was rather young. The gameplay, it did have its occasional quirks. Lara liked throwing herself off of things that she was climbing. There were a lot of occasions where I would have to jump from like one rock face to another, and instead of jumping to like the other rock face, the other climbable surface, she would like turn herself around and yeet herself like the wrong direction and then fall to her doom, which could be very funny at times, and then like a good majority of the time though it was extremely frustrating. But for the most part, it was really good. There were some lag issues I experienced towards the end of the game, though I'm attributing that to the fact that there was fire, sparks, snow and rain, like all these different special effects all happening at once, and I think the game was just like, too much, overload, stop. So, other than that, though, it was pretty good. Not a lot of issues. Audio. The audio wasn't over the top, wasn't bad either. Pretty good music. I'm a sucker for good game music that really builds the atmosphere. It was pretty standard. I would also say it's pretty average difficulty. It wasn't anything ridiculously hard. It wasn't anything like super easy either. The game time and runtime, was about 27.2 hours. And the game is priced at $30. Now, I think this is a pretty decent sized game. It comes with the DLC. I would probably say I wouldn't feel super guilty about dropping $30 on this game. However, I got the first Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is the third game, all in a bundle on sale. So, again, I'd wait for it to go on sale, but I could also be swayed to say that it is worth the $30. Bugs. So I did have, again, those lag issues at the end. Lara throwing herself off of things. I don't know if I would count that as a bug or if that was just poor game mechanics. Don't really know. I rated the game as an 8.5 out of 10. And my side notes, I've always enjoyed the Tomb Raider games. It's a good story, good character. I really appreciate that Lara Croft is not some damsel in distress, or that she's always looking for her next love interest to like throw herself into his arms, or that he comes in guns blazing to save her life. Like, I appreciate that she can stand up for herself. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a sucker for a really good love story. I love. I'm a hopeless romantic, but it is kind of refreshing that like the romance is not the main focus of this game, because like even Uncharted, which the Tomb Raiders actually took me into Uncharted, like they were my link. I was like, oh well, Uncharted is supposed to be a lot like Tomb Raider, and I really like Tomb Raider, so I'm gonna play Uncharted. But even with Uncharted, like it gets to a point that you have that like building love story between Nate and Elena, and at like one point, like it's a common, like for the at least third and fourth game, like it's a big part of the game that's like they're like having like arguments and stuff as a couple. But I came from like the Arkham games, and then I branched into like the Tomb Raider games, which then took me to like Uncharted. So I'll say it a lot, Tomb Raider has like a really special place in my heart. I do like the Uncharted games more, but the Tomb Raider games are very similar and very fun. And I have to say, the bow and arrow is like the OG weapon. You have to have it. It's so much better than a gun. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and we'll put Tomb Raider on the tier list. And like I said, I rated it an 8.5 out of 10, which means that it's gonna, yeah, we're gonna put it here. I guess that could have been 7 to 8.5, but I'm gonna put it here. Good game. Enjoyed the game. Really liked it. Recommend it. I could say splurge if you really felt like it. Still wait for it to go on sale, but it's a good one. So the next game we're going to take a look at is Beyond Two Souls. Now, I love this game. I'm very fond of it. Once again, has a special place in my heart. And this is like the third or fourth time I've recorded this part because I just keep like going on and on and on about this game. It's really hard to like sum it up. But basically we follow this girl. Her name is Jodie. Jodie is actually played by Elliot Page, but before Elliot transitioned, back when they still went by Ellen Page. It is an older game. It is made by Quantic Dream, so the same people that made Heavy Rain, which I was not a fan of, that I played last year, and the very popular Detroit Become Human. Beyond Two Souls came between those two games, and I think it's actually probably the least talked about of the three, which I find very disappointing because I absolutely adore this game. I think it is a really cool concept. I think it's really well done. Like, there are, like, of course, issues and quirks, but that's pretty much every game. But I feel like this game was pretty well done. I've never heard of anything like this game before. I really like it. So, anyways, we follow Jodie Holmes, and ever since Jodie was born, she has had this entity-typed spirit named Aiden attached to her. Aiden is something, or I don't know if I want to call him someone, but is an entity that only Jodie can communicate with. Nobody else can see him. Nobody else can talk to him. Aiden can make the room cold, so like people can like kind of like feel him, like if he makes the temperature of the room drop. But for the most part, no one can really communicate with Aiden except for Jodie. Well, Jodie was put up for adoption as a child. She's adopted. Her adoptive father in particular, like her mother's great, but her father did not want to put up with Jodie. Jodie was constantly being attacked by these dark little like entities that only Aiden could defend her from, but her father was like, she's crazy, I don't want to deal with this. She had been going to Nathan, and I forget Nathan's last name, but Nathan is played by Willem Dafoe, and his character studies the supernatural, and so Jodie had been going to him to try and figure out what was going on, and they ended up just surrendering her to the facility. She ends up living at the facility so they can study her and Aiden. She gets recruited into the CIA, is basically used as a weapon. Jodie doesn't like that, especially because the people that she's being tasked with assassinating are people that didn't deserve to be killed. They were just either in the CIA's way or going against what the CIA wanted, which causes Jodie to lash out. Jodie ends up running away from the CIA. Then she's running from the law because they're like, well, we've trained you to basically be our perfect little soldier. We can't risk you being on the loose. So she's chased. There's a whole at least chapter about it. She's homeless for a while. She ends up out in like the middle of nowhere on like a Navajo like plot of land with like this little Navajo family, which is my favorite part of the game. Then she ends up getting, like, she was found, she has to go help the CIA, because of Jodie's ties to like this supernatural other side due to being attached to Aiden. Jodie is left to clean up a lot of messes that people make in an effort to communicate with this other side by opening these portals that are called rifts. She had to do it once as a teenager. Now she's being asked to go close down one that the Japanese have opened in like the middle of the ocean. And then eventually Nathan, basically the closest thing she's ever had to a father figure, opens one in like this upgraded facility. And it's like a whole, like, it just destroys everything, because turns out Nathan's wife and daughter were killed in like this brutal car crash, and he had found a way to keep their souls from moving on, and by doing so was keeping them in just this constant state of agony, of suffering. And Jodie is able to communicate with the dead, so she, like, his wife communicates through Jodie to Nathan that he needs to let them move on, needs to let them go. Well, this causes Nathan to freak out because he thinks that Jodie's lying to him, and he just wants his wife and his daughter back. And then he opens this huge rift in the facility, and when Jodie shuts it down, Jodie loses Aiden. Aiden is detached from her. Aiden leaves, and we had recently found out, spoiler alert, that Aiden is Jodie's deceased twin, that she had been a twin at birth. Aiden didn't make it, but because her birth parents were heavily tied into the supernatural, that somehow prevented Aiden from fully dying and had attached his spirit then to Jodie. So they're actually twins. Now there are 4 different endings for the game. At the end of the game, we end up realizing, because the game is not told in chronological order, it is all over the place. It hops all throughout Jodie's life, back and forth. And we come to find out that it's because Jodie's losing her memories and is only able to recall bits and pieces at a time. Well, she has moved out, like, after all of this has happened, she's gone out into the middle of nowhere, she's secluded in this little cabin, and one of the options is that she stays alone, that she doesn't, there's 2 possible love interests, she doesn't go to either of them, she doesn't return to the group of homeless people she had lived with at one point, she stays by herself. Then there's the homeless group. While she'd been with the homeless group, one of the people had been pregnant, and Jodie helped deliver the baby. And at the end of each choice, Jodie has a vision of the future, that a huge rift is opened, entities are just spilling out everywhere, mass destruction. It's basically the end of the world as we know it. And in the 3 other options, Jodie is always in this vision alone. But if you choose the option with this little girl who is named Zoe, Zoe is in the vision. So Zoe is somehow connected to the supernatural, but we're never told how, because Zoe was not a twin. There was not another baby. So it's not like she has an Aiden attached to her like Jodie does. So that left the biggest unanswered question. Then there's the 2 love interests. So one of them is Ryan, and I despise Ryan. I feel like Ryan and Jodie's relationship is very toxic. Ryan was with the CIA. There's like a pretty decent age gap between them, and for the longest time, like, Ryan was a jerk. Jodie was never good enough. And then Jodie, like, started having to spend time with him because he was her superior, and she would have to pose as his dates for certain missions, and they were always going on missions together, and I just felt like she started to, like, develop a crush, almost in, like, a sense of transference. I don't think it was a healthy relationship. I think it was actually pretty toxic. Ryan could be a jerk if things weren't going his way. I don't like Ryan, but he is an option that you end up going to like, run off with him. Or you can go back to the Navajos. You can go be with Jay. So there's 2 brothers. There's Jay, and then there's Corey. Jay can also be a jerk, but I can understand his reason for being a jerk more than Ryan. But I like Jay a lot more. I like Corey. Corey was really sweet. I liked the idea of Jodie and Jay together a lot more than Jodie and Ryan. My default choice is always Jodie and Jay. And then in each option, actually, I know for sure in both of the romantic interests, now I'm not remembering if it's with Zoe in the alone ending, but I know at least with both of the romantic interests, Aiden ends up revealing that he's still there, that I don't know if he's necessarily attached, but he's still with Jodie. He wasn't, like, sucked back into the rift when she closed it down, the previous time. Like, he was still with her, which is great. And yeah, I wish that this game hadn't, like, left with, like, this whole end of the world sequence vision thing happening and not giving us any answers. Like, I think a graphic novel or, like, a 20-minute long animated video or even, like, a couple hour long DLC would have been, like, awesome to just kind of give a little more information, because once this game was over, it was done. Like, nothing was ever really done with it again. So yeah. As far as gameplay is concerned, this game has a lot of replayability because you can choose different options to reflect different, or to get different outcomes. Like, there are times that, like, for instance, when Jodie's roughly, like, 13, one of the people that works at the facility that she lives at invites her to her daughter's birthday party. Well, her daughter is like, I don't know, Jodie. This is, like, she's some weirdo from the facility. I don't know who this person is. Jodie's not cool enough. Jodie brings her a book of poetry, and, you know, the girl's like, what is this garbage? You brought me, like, some old book. Like, there's alcohol, smoking, all of this stuff, and they end up ganging up on Jodie, and Jodie gets locked into a closet, which Aiden breaks her out of. Now, you have the option to cause, like, a lot of mayhem and basically terrify these teenagers, or you can just go outside and wait for Nathan to come pick you up. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, there's different scenarios throughout the game that you can do one thing or another. So I think that adds to, like, the replayability. I will say there are these action-oriented chapters, and anything that is action-oriented in this game is normally when the game gets really rocky and really rough. The game is not built to be action-oriented. There's this one particular chapter. I hate this chapter because the entire thing is all action. And it's called The Mission. And I recorded it for the channel, and I know it's probably easy to think, well, she doesn't like that chapter, so she purposely did not record it. No, I recorded it, but something happened to the file. It was corrupted, and I didn't like the chapter enough to be like, okay, let's go back and replay it. I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't like the chapter. It's not a fun chapter. It is very difficult to play. So I just moved on. But it's just, the game is not built for running around and being shot at and parkouring everywhere. Like, that's just not what this game is. So anything that is very action heavy becomes very difficult to manage and to play. Then there's Aiden. You have the option to play as Aiden, like the ability, but Aiden does not maneuver well in tight spaces, and sometimes the camera work can get very nauseating. There's also, like, certain walls and doors that Aiden can go through and certain walls and doors that he can't. And I understand for, like, a story purpose, you can't let Aiden just have free roam everywhere. But it got kind of frustrating if we were in a tight space that Aiden can't go through this wall, but he can go through that other wall that I'm having a hard time getting to. Like, it was very annoying at times. There's also these locked camera angles. And sometimes you had to go into a room at a certain angle to be able to access an object, to be able to progress, but the locked camera angle made it very difficult to see this object, or to reach it, or to even know it was there. So sometimes the camera could be really rough. There's also times where, like, the camera gets very shaky during, like, action sequences, and it's very difficult to move Jodie when the camera is shaking so hard. And then there's quick time there's quick time events. So when Jodie is in training to become this, like, CIA soldier, she goes through, like, combat training, and it pops up repeatedly throughout the game, but it's very difficult to predict what these, like, quick time events are asking for, because, like, sometimes she's supposed to move into the hit and other times she's supposed to move away from it, but it can be very difficult to predict which way she's supposed to move, because it's not always clear which, like, direction the hit is coming from. And that was actually probably where I struggled the most, or where she would get hurt the most, was because I was like, I don't know which way I'm supposed to move because I can't tell where this hit is coming from. Sometimes it was fine, other times not so much. But it is a very nostalgic game. It's old enough that it did drop the ranking in my tier list, but it's not enough to tank it. The graphics are older, kind of wonky. It is a motion capture game, so it's actually really cool. If you ever have a moment, like, I totally recommend checking out how these games are made, because it looks like a lot of fun. So there are times that, like, their facial expressions look kind of plastic or kind of unnatural, but I mean, it is what it is, I guess. The audio is good, not mind-blowing. There's, like, epic music that plays during the credits. It's pretty average difficulty, pretty straightforward. I've actually had a couple friends play this game over the years, and they catch on to it really quick because it is just really straightforward. My game time was 41.7 hours. I'd wait for the game to go on sale just because it's old enough that I can't, in good conscience, tell you to go pay for full price. Sorry. But it is a good game, so I do recommend it. Just, I don't recommend it at full price. I can't recall any major bugs, but it could get laggy at times and, again, a little difficult to maneuver. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10 stars or whatever. It holds a special place in my heart. This is the first Let's Play I watched. I don't really remember much about the Let's Play, but again, that's really why it's so nostalgic for me. So, on the tier list, it is going up here beside Rise of the Tomb Raider. So now we've come to April 25th through June 22nd when I played Assassin's Creed 2. Now, on lists I've seen of the different Assassin's Creed games, number 1 is normally ranked really low. It's normally ranked towards the bottom of the list as one of the worst Assassin's Creed games. Number 2, however, is normally one of the top 3 or 4 games, which had me hopeful but hesitant after how much I had disliked the first game. However, I loved Assassin's Creed 2. It was a lot of fun. We follow Ezio Auditore, something like that. We follow Ezio. Ezio is from a noble family, has a younger brother, a younger sister, and an older brother. His father, I don't remember exactly what his father does, but had ended up being against whoever was in power in Italy, and it was enough to get him and his brothers all hung. Now, Ezio managed to escape this fate. However, now it's just him, his mother, and his sister, and now he has a thirst for vengeance. So they go to his uncle's estate, and Ezio is told that his father and his uncle are members of a League of Assassins, basically. And Ezio is already he's got the strength. He would climb into his secret girlfriend's window at night and stuff. He has the abilities. So after some training, he ends up joining in and becoming an assassin. He is now working with his uncle to take down the men responsible for having his family killed, and it slowly morphs from just being about vengeance to, well, now I have to take down all of the people involved, to, well, there's this artifact, and it's the same this Apple of Eden or whatever it's called from the first game. It's the same artifact, or maybe, is it a second one, or is it the same thing? I can't remember. I think it's the same one. But now he has to get this artifact, and it's just, it's a pretty simple story when you really think about it, but it was done a lot better than the first game. It was very well connected. It went very smoothly. It takes place over a number of years. There's good character development, watching Ezio develop from this playboy 21-year-old kid into this man who is not going to let anything happen to his family or those he cares about. He's, kind of like an olden day Batman is kind of what he reminded me of. They were really good characters. I loved Ezio. He wasn't bitter or unnecessarily arrogant or cruel like Altair could be. He was very kind-hearted, very genuine. He showed a sweet side. I really liked him. There was also Leonardo da Vinci, and at first I was like, he's okay, but I ended up actually coming to really like Leo. He always made me happy when we had to pay Leonardo a visit. The maps were a lot better. Everything felt like it was there for a reason. It wasn't just random. It could at times get a little bit repetitive, but there was enough variety in this that I didn't really mind. It didn't bother me like it did in the first game. I just felt like it was really well done. It ended up taking what was somewhat successful in the first game and expanding on it and making it better. The parkour was smoother. The combat was better. The assassinations were better. The tasks that I struggled with in the first game, I could complete a lot easier now. Now, I will say, there are tombs. There's kind of this underlying side mission that you have to go into these tombs and collect these different pieces, and then you take them to this mausoleum underneath your uncle's estate, or Ezio's uncle's estate. And if you get all the pieces, you unlock Altair's assassin robes. And I ended up completing all of them, but the tombs were hands down the worst part of this game. While like the parkour was smoother, it was almost too sensitive. It was like very precise. There was this one tomb in particular that I actually rage quit on a couple of times that I had to keep walking away from because it was so precise where Ezio had to jump to, where he had to land, that if you messed up, you had to start the entire thing over. It was very time consuming. And there were a couple times that I ran into this issue where you had to be exactly precise in where you landed or where you jumped to, otherwise you lost a lot of progress. So it could get really annoying and it could backfire. And so like the parkour and like the tombs was actually probably my least favorite part of this entire game. There were really good stealth mechanics though. I do wish there was a crouch button or like a crouch option, because there isn't. But there was more assassination techniques. There was more variety for fighting. There was smoother fighting. I really appreciated that there were like these different groups around town that you could pay to like assist you. So there were missionaries. You could use like the female escorts in town. There's another group. Thieves, I think they were. And they could help distract guards, or you could use them as cover or whatever, and they were actually really useful. Now, as far as the graphics are concerned, it is a 14-year-old game, so, you know, again, kind of outdated. I do feel like they were better than the first game. They weren't as flat. It was kind of odd when you were in cutscenes and the camera would be like farther away, like outside of rendering distance for characters, and so their mouths wouldn't be moving as they were talking. But then as the camera would come in closer, they would like snap into render distance and start talking, or like their mouths would move, which was really funny. The maps and the locations were also very pretty and very well done. I didn't feel like I was running around the same city for every map. Like they were all unique enough that, again, I didn't feel like I was in the same location every time. The music was really pretty. I ended up taking the music scores. There's 2 albums worth of music for this game, and I put them into this like study playlist that I have that's full of movie and game scores. It's normally what I put on when I'm studying or I just need some like background noise, and the music from this game is in that playlist. There were pretty decent sound effects, good sound design. The difficulty, if you don't consider the parkour in the tombs, because the tombs are not mandatory, it's pretty average. It's not necessarily difficult, but if you're going to count and consider the tombs, then it gets a little more difficult because the parkour is rather difficult in the tombs. My game time was 36 hours. The game itself is $20, but I would still probably wait for the series to go on sale. Again, I got almost all of them for $80. Just wait for it to go on sale. I know there was a bug. I know there were bugs that I ran into, but this is one of those games that I forgot to write down a lot of detail. And I recorded this over a couple of months, and so I couldn't remember all of the bugs that I encountered. So there were no like big bugs that I'm like, oh my gosh, this issue. I ranked it a 7 out of 10. My just kind of like side notes, this game was so much better than the first. It was just, everything was better. I'm very fond of this game, interested to see where it goes. I'm hoping to play as Ezio again. I loved playing as Ezio, and I am curious to see where it takes Desmond in like the real world, like outside of Italy, because like I said when talking about the first game, the second game picks up, as far as like IRL Desmond is concerned, it picks up exactly where the last game left off. So yeah. So if we come back to the tier list, I'm going to put Assassin's Creed 2 right up next to Beyond Two Souls. So after finishing Assassin's Creed 2, we moved into Plague Inc. Evolved. Now I played Plague Inc. Evolved from June 24th to July 24th. The whole point of this game is that you're trying to make different plagues with the objective of completely wiping out all of humanity. You're trying to kill off everybody, which is kind of ironic, seeing as how we're coming like out of the pandemonium. But that is the point of the game, and I've always wanted to play it, and I've held off on playing it because of like how things have been in the world. But I was like, yeah, you know what? Why not? So we did. So this game doesn't have much story-wise. It doesn't follow a story because like each level is a different type of plague. So for gameplay, it kind of depends on which plague you're doing. Sometimes it can be relatively easy. Other times it can be pretty difficult. If you want to be technical, I never actually finished this game. I said I was going to come back and finish the very last plague, which was the shadow plague, so basically a vampire. I wasted so much time trying to complete this plague, and it just never happened. I could never get it, and it just got really frustrating, and it wasn't fun anymore, and so I was like, you know what, screw this, we're done. So maybe it's something I'll go back to in the future, but as of right now, it's not. But there were some that like I breezed right through. There were others that I didn't. That took me quite a while, if I finished them at all. And there was only one I didn't finish, and it was, again, that Shadow Plague. The game is very strategic. Each plague is solved a different way. Sometimes it's becoming as lethal as quick as possible. Other times it's trying to go undetected for as long as possible. Oh goodness. It just depends on which plague. So that really also determines the difficulty. Again, some of them pretty straightforward, pretty standard. Others pretty difficult. Pretty basic graphics. I mean, just looking at a map of the world. Like, I don't really know what else to say. The audio had both very satisfying. Like, you had to pop these DNA bubbles in order to get points, in order to mutate your plague. And sometimes the bubble popping sounds were very satisfying, and other times they were very like disturbing, and they really bothered me because they were very disgusting noises. But there was some pretty atmospheric music. It was okay. Standard audio. The game / runtime for this was 28 hours. Most of that time, I would say a good majority, okay, not a good majority, but a good chunk of it was doing that stupid Shadow Plague. The game is relatively cheap, but it does go on sale quite often. So again, I recommend, like every other game, wait for it to go on sale. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. I don't know if it's this version of the game necessarily, but I do know that there are other games very similar to it that you can get on like your tablets, maybe even your phones. There's also a board game version of it, and there's also a cure version, so you're fighting a plague to cure everybody. So like in Plague Inc., you're fighting against the cure. This time you're fighting against the plague. I don't have the game. It's on my wish list, but it's not something I've bought. Bugs, I don't remember there being any like major bugs. I ranked this a 6 out of 10. It was fun, but it was pretty easy to get me frustrated about it. It was okay. The more I played it, the more I felt like I kind of disliked it. It started to become not as fun because it was just getting so like convoluted. But yeah, it's fun enough. So I'm going to give, like I did say I was giving it a 6 out of 10. So on the tier list, we're going to plop it there. And then we move on to Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, the DLC, Ruin. So I kind of questioned whether or not I should have, like, if I should include Ruin, because it is a DLC. I didn't include Tomb Raider's DLC as its own thing, but Ruin was actually, it took me 5 parts to record, it took me quite a few hours to play, so I ended up deciding that we're going to go ahead and include it as its own thing. Now, I played Ruin from July 27th to August 7th. I think it was actually a pretty decent DLC. It kept me intrigued, but it also left a lot of unanswered questions. It takes place a little bit after the actual game Security Breach. We follow a little girl named Cassie, who is friends with Gregory, the protagonist of Security Breach, and he has contacted her somehow to say that he has been, he's at the pizzeria. I just realized you can't see the top bar. I don't know. I must have scrolled down at some point. But that he's stuck at the pizzeria in a sinkhole, down underneath it, and that he needs her help. Now, I did not end up playing the quote-unquote true ending of FNAF Security Breach because it was a hot mess. I was ready for it to be done with. I didn't want to bother with it anymore. And from what I saw of other people playing through the true ending, it was very glitchy, it was very laggy, it was very difficult to play because it was very broken. But all of that aside, if you did play through the true ending, or if you've seen someone play through the true ending, you go down underneath the pizzeria, and there's Spring Trap, now known as Burn Trap, and he's trying to get to you using the other animatronics. He keeps trying to hack Freddy and stuff, and it's a whole thing. Well, somehow, and I don't know. During the DLC, at the very end, we were introduced to this new animatronic. I had no idea what this thing was called, didn't know what it was, but it's called the Mimic. And Cassie is actually conversing with the Mimic and not with Gregory. The Mimic is using Gregory's voice to lure Cassie into this sinkhole under the Pizzaplex so that the Mimic can get out. So throughout the DLC, we are constantly running away. Well, we were given Vanny's AR mask, so augmented reality mask, and I don't like the mask. I'll talk about it here in a second, but we're given the mask, and anytime we're in the mask for too long, this giant bunny appears, called Mexis, M-X-E-S. Now, throughout the game, you're led to believe that Mexis is the antagonist, that it's the bad guy, because we're turning off all these security nodes, and Mexis is constantly trying to get in our way, and we're like, oh my gosh, and this thing was pretty scary. This little, this very intense, sound would play whenever the Mexis spawned, and it really got my adrenaline going. But come to find out that the Mexis was actually a security program put in place by Vanessa to keep Glitch Trap, who is using the Mimic, to get out, to escape. So I don't know. It was it was pretty decent. I saw the whole thing coming, that the Mimic was not Gregory. I'm like, I don't think this is Gregory trying to get us to come help him. I didn't believe it was him, especially because he supposedly got out at the end of the last game, or at the end of the main game. So I was like, why would he have gone back? It didn't make any sense to me. Now at the very end of the game, after running away from the Mimic, I'm talking so fast, and I'm tripping myself up. In the end, we're running away from the Mimic, and we go into this old, shabby, rundown elevator. And as we start to ascend, Gregory comes over the speaker, and he's like, this was not me calling you here. This was the Mimic, or is this animatronic. You're not supposed to be there. But basically, I can't let you leave, because if you leave, then that gives the Mimic a way to escape, which is something that can't happen. However, I'm firmly under the belief that the whole, the start of this little spiel from Gregory is actually Gregory. It's not me down there. You're not supposed to be there. It wasn't me calling you there. But then I think, because at one point there's this little glitch, and I think then the Mimic takes over and is like, but you can't leave, and it sends the elevator careening back to the ground, crashing. Game ends. We don't know if anything happened to Cassie. We're left in typical FNAF fashion with more questions than answers. So I don't I'm really conflicted about this mimic creature because I don't think the mimic ties in well to the FNAF universe. If I hadn't gone and watched theory videos after finishing this game, I would have no idea about pretty much anything that happened. None of it was straightforward at all, and I know that FNAF is normally pretty obscure, but like this, like the DLC was like really obscure, and I was just left questioning constantly. I almost wish it was like a separate game instead of just a DLC. I think it had the potential to be like a really cool game in and of itself. It ran a lot better than Security Breach. I appreciated that I wasn't just running all over the place all the time. I'm losing my voice. It did, however, get kind of repetitive. Like, I liked at first the introduction of the parent and the children or the child nodes, that like these security nodes we had to shut off. But after a while, they got very repetitive because it was the same thing every time, shutting down these child nodes to unlock the parent nodes. It did get really repetitive. Now it ran a lot smoother than the original game. The Mexus bunny was a really cool design. I actually really liked the Mexus bunny constantly chasing us. It did really amp up for me like the horror feel that I was constantly like, okay, what, like how long can I be in the Vanny mask before it spawns? How long do I have before it comes after me? But I don't like the like over dependence of the Vanny mask. I felt like it was a cop out that like they created this really cool environment, but instead of like finding a way to get around objects, they were just like, throw the Vanny mask on and walk right through it. I know that like FNAF is full of like things that cannot be explained, that can never happen, that aren't realistic in the slightest. But like this like crossed the line for me, I guess, that we could put on a mask and just walk through a wall, a door, a bunch of fallen debris. Like that just to me like was too much. It was just like, give me a better jump mechanic and let me jump over things, or give me a way around objects. Don't just have me throw on a mask and walk right through it. There at the beginning, we were given the like ability to like, there was like an electrical current that was showing us where we were supposed to go, and I wish that that mechanic had been used a little bit more, not like overboard like they did with the nodes, but I think it could have been useful, and it wasn't used as much as I think it could have been. We didn't really see much of Chica or Freddy, or really Roxy for that matter. Roxy did show up a couple of times, and I actually appreciated that at one point she went to attack Cassie, and Cassie like freaked out and was like, stop, like get away from me, and it like something like switched for Roxy, and she's like, oh I'm sorry, like, and like it kind of kicked her out of it, and I appreciated that. And Roxy even ended up coming to Cassie's rescue at the end. But we saw Chica for like a hot second. We had a little bit of a run-in with Freddy. But other than that, we didn't really see them. I would consider of the 4 animatronics that Monty to be the most the most threatening, just because Monty was around the most. Now Monty, there wasn't much left of Monty. Monty probably had the worst card dealt to him in the main game. He was not looking too great, but he was around the most. He was put into the environment the most. He cracks me up though, because like he's just like, arr, arr, arr. Like he's just making these like roaring noises. And like dragging himself around on the floor. It's very hard to take Monty seriously. But I will say that the horror was kicked up a notch. Like the environment was a lot more spooky. And it felt a lot more FNAF in that sense. Like the environment was a lot more spooky, a lot more horror, which is what you would expect from a FNAF game. I enjoyed the DLC more than the main game, which makes me kind of sad to say. But I liked the surroundings. I thought it was a pretty good environment, very atmospheric. The graphics I felt were actually better than Security Breach. They looked a little more polished, and it really helped to convey the horror aimed theme of the DLC. The audio was really good. It did a really good job of like bringing you into the game, set a really good atmosphere. Again, like as soon as like the Mexus bunny spawned, there was like this really intense sound, and it always freaked me out. I'd say it was probably about average, maybe a tad difficult at times for difficulty, not necessarily hard, but there were some times I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. It only took me about 4.6 hours to complete. It was free with Security Breach, but you have to have Security Breach to play it. But I don't recommend buying Security Breach at full price. I would definitely wait for that game to be on sale. It is not worth full price. I don't care if it's been fixed now. I don't recommend Security Breach at full price. For bugs, for the most part, it ran pretty well, but occasionally, like if I had to like close out of the game and then would start the game back up to record, it would be very laggy and have a hard time like quote unquote waking up. And it often would cause some frustration because like I was like, okay, if I get caught because the game's lagging, I'm going to be mad. But eventually it would catch up to itself and we'd be fine. I gave it a 6 out of 10. And again, just like my takeaway note, the Vanny mask was a cop-out. I wish we didn't have to rely on it as much as we did. I think we should have had more like in-game, like in the world gameplay than as much of the gameplay we had in the mask. So I'm going to put this game as a 6 out of 10 stars. I'm actually going to put it ahead of Plague Inc. Evolved because I liked it just a little bit more than Plague Inc. Evolved. But it really doesn't matter because they're both 6 out of 10s. So then we come to my last game that I'm technically still playing, Hogwarts Legacy. I started this game on August 10th, and I haven't technically finished playing. Now, I've finished playing the main storyline, and the last part for the game actually went up yesterday for, like, the main story. However, I have more videos coming out that will be continuing, like, side mission-y stuff, or just kind of environment exploring, but the main story is over. Now, I understand that this game is actually quite controversial because of its ties to J.K. Rowling, and I did not purchase this game to support J.K. Rowling. Like, that was not what I was going for, and I sincerely applaud people who have, like, managed to stay away from the game solely because they do not want to support J.K. Rowling. However, I was not as strong. I really wanted to play this game, and I'm going to be honest, I had the best time playing this game. I thought it was really well done. It was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I was really sad that it came to an end. I just had the best time, but I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to offend people by playing it, but I do know it's very controversial. So as far as the story goes, you make your own character. My character was named Georgia Moosley. Georgia after my dog George. Moosley after my dog Moose. And Georgia originally had purple hair because the channel's theme color is purple. Now eventually I saw that, like, because I was on Hogwarts Legacy TikTok, and I saw that not many people had their characters with, like, crazy colored hair, so I ended up conforming to the norm, and Georgia became a brunette. But you make your character, and you don't really get much of a backstory on them. All you know is that it is what would be their 5th year at Hogwarts, and they're only just now joining because they have become, they're now wielding magic, and not just any magic, but an ancient type of magic that they are 1 and 5 people in the game to be able to wield. So my character, Georgia, is escorted to Hogwarts with Professor Fig. Love Professor Fig. Rip Professor Fig. But we are going to Hogwarts. We get attacked on the way by a dragon. End up, he apparates us to, like, this weird location. We find what's called a port key the port key just ends up revealing like a bunch of stuff, and it just kind of like it spirals from there. We just learn more and more about Georgia's abilities with this ancient magic. There's a goblin named Ranrock who had been done wrong by wizard kind and was now looking to be able to use magic himself to turn against wizards and give goblins the ability to wield magic. But in order to do this, he had to use the ancient magic, so it was kind of a race between who could get to it first. Georgia had to complete different trials by what are known as the Keepers, there was a group of 4 professors from the past who had this ability to wield and see this ancient magic. They had a student who also had this ability, but ended up using it to take the pain away from people. Ended up that she wasn't just taking away their pain, she was taking away all of their emotions, which is not what the Keepers stood for. They wanted to keep the magic secret. Isadora, the student, didn't want that. She's like, we need to be sharing this magic. We need to be helping people with it. Well, they ended up Avada Kedavering her, and, that was the end of her. However, she had collected a lot of this magic, and it had been stored in this huge repository underneath Hogwarts. Well, this was not the only repository, and so while Georgia is going through the trials to gain more magic, Ranrock is tracking down these repositories and taking the magic out of them, and whoever can get to the repository under Hogwarts basically will have control of the ancient magic and to do with it as they see fit. Now, personally, I had actually wanted to absorb the magic because I felt that it would be better if Georgia were to die, the magic would hopefully be gone with her. Instead, I let Professor Fig kind of guilt trip me into keeping it contained so that it would just continue to sit underneath Hogwarts, which I did not think was the right idea because that just meant that more people could try to come after it. But I guess it was seen that if I were to keep the magic, it meant that I was just as power hungry as Isadora had been, which wasn't what I was going for, but those were the 2 options, is because be seen as power hungry because you want the magic, or let it just continue to sit underneath Hogwarts. I felt this story was amazing. It was really fun. I'm, again, super sad it's over. It went very in depth. You had 3 different friend storylines. Sebastian, my beloved walking red flag, Natsai Onai, and then Poppy Sweeting. And then Sebastian is actually pretty heavily involved in the main story as well. But you develop these different relationships with these 3 fellow classmates, and then there's a bunch of side quests, and depending on which house you are in, there are house-specific quests that you can participate in. However, I don't feel that this game had a lot of replayability. Yes, you could play as another house, but it's almost like I'm taking the amount of time to go through everything, and by taking this much time, it almost gets to the point that you lose any of the new, there's not much left to discover. However, I've played all the way through Batman Arkham Knight, and Arkham Knight is a comfort game for me. It's if I just need to mindlessly play something because I'm really frustrated or really worked up or really upset, Arkham Knight is normally what I open and rage play. And I could also see this game being a rage play type game as well. I did see some of the twists coming. Others I did not. Sebastian. I do wish there was a romance option. Give me some red flag, and I think that's a common thing. A lot of people are why can't we romance any of the characters? Why can't we romance Gareth Weasley or Ominous Gaunt or Sebastian Sallow? It's a common demand, is that people want to romance the different guys throughout the game. I do also wish there was more of a classwork / reality type system in place. You're a Hogwarts student, and I attended every class once, and then there were a couple classes that I technically attended again, but they were just cutscenes, and Georgia wasn't in the cutscenes. It was just all the classmates. I was only ever in my dorm room if that's where I would wake up after the end of a quest. I never had to sleep. I never had to eat. I never had to worry about making it to class. And I just wish that there was some of that. And I constantly compare this to Stardew Valley. Like, you wake up at a certain time and you have basically the entire day to do with as you please, but you have an energy and a health bar. And if either of those, get too low, then you got to call it quits for the day, or you have to make sure you're back on your farm by a certain time so that you still have energy the following day, or so that you don't pass out somewhere and have to pay the consequence for not making it back on time. I could see this being pretty annoying, that sometimes it was really nice to just be able to go out and do whatever, be whatever, wherever, for however long I wanted. But I do also wish that there was more of being an actual student involved in this game. So as far as the gameplay is concerned, I will admit it's pretty easy to get tripped up with the amount of buttons in this game. There are so many spells and buttons, and in the midst of battling, I found I didn't want to switch between my different sets of spells because I could never remember where I had put what spells, and then I would get hit looking for spells that would break certain shields, or then I would Georgia would be targeting the wrong person, and I would waste one of the spells and wait for her to have to recharge, and it was just very easy to get tripped up on the amount of buttons involved. I have this game on the PlayStation 4. My dad's been playing it, and my dad plays a lot of games, and he honestly, he gets constantly frustrated with this game because of all the buttons, and he can't keep track of them. It's very easy to get, to trip up and switch between spells, especially in the heat of battle. There are also, you have a broom that you can fly on. You are able to fly on a hippogriff named Highwing, and eventually there's a grab horn you can ride on. It can be very difficult, especially with the magical beasts, to maneuver them. Highwing is very difficult to, have her fly up or, maneuver out of tight spaces. The grab horn is very awkward to control. I only played with it, the one time when it was, when I just rescued it. Otherwise, I wasn't playing with the grab horn, and again, Highwing could be, I loved flying with Highwing, but she could also be very difficult to maneuver. Otherwise, it was pretty solid. I felt like there was good combat, good stealth. I don't normally love enemy health bars. I feel like they kind of take away from the game, but it actually worked out pretty well, and I didn't mind them as much in this game. The graphics were beautiful once I had installed dual channel RAM into my computer. Now, I have a pretty decent computer. It's no beast by any means, but it's also not a standard PC. It is specifically a gaming computer. I dropped a pretty penny on it. I'm very proud of of this computer, but this game is a beast, and it's a problem I've run into a lot with these big name games. I had the issue with Gotham Knights, that they're already asking you to drop $60 to $70 on them as the game. Then for it not your computer to not even be able to run it at medium quality really bugs me, really makes me mad, because I had to turn around and drop another $75 on the dual channel RAM, and I had been considering getting a capture card because while I was having issues with the game, I turned around and I bought the PlayStation version of the game, thinking I was going to have to start recording it on the PlayStation, because I just could not get it to run well on the computer, which had me really frustrated because I had already spent a pretty penny on the game to have it on the computer. And then someone had recommended in my comments to try dual channel. I did that, works wonders, played beautifully. I was able to up all of my settings to ultra. It was gorgeous for the most part, played really well, but that really does bug me that I already have an expensive computer, had to drop another $75 for the dual channel on top of paying for the game just to get it to run well and look nice. Like, that just it really, really pushes my buttons, because that's how it was with Gotham Knights. I have since tried playing Gotham Knights since installing the dual channel, and it plays like a completely different game. But that really bugs me. Like, that really frustrates me. And I think it is absolute insanity. And it just gets me worked up. It is an unnecessarily demanding game for like lower end computers. I've heard that it doesn't look as good on the console. It just recently came out on the Switch, and I have no idea how it plays on the Switch. I can't imagine it plays that well, but I don't know. There was also this like graphics glitch with the water, and I don't know what would trigger it, but suddenly the water would turn like flat black, and it wouldn't like fix itself until I had like loaded away from it, like gone through a loading screen, which was really annoying, but not like end of the world. The audio, I loved the music. Again, this is another game that is in my like study music, and there is actually a whole album that is dedicated specifically to studying. Both of the albums are in my playlist. Gorgeous music, love the music. I will say it's a souped up truck. Somebody's overcompensating for something. George's voice was very robotic, and I don't know how much of that, like, I don't know if the character is AI to start with, or if it's one of those things that someone has recorded all of the lines, but then you can choose the different tone of voice for your character to like have them in a deeper register or a higher register. And I don't know if changing the register is what makes them sound robotic. I don't know, but like in the beginning, it really bothered me. I kind of got used to it as the game progressed, but it really bugged me at the beginning just how robotic she sounded. It was pretty average as far as difficulty goes. Again, unless you really struggle with like spells and all the different buttons, like my dad, even like me to a point. My runtime was about 68.8 hours. It is a very expensive game, so would wait for it to go on sale. And again, you're probably going to need to have a pretty decent PC or even console to be able to run this game how it is expected to be run. So I just a heads up on that. Bugs, again, there's the water glitch, and they're like, it doesn't just like some of like the characters don't like, they just look weird, or like the environment doesn't look weird. If you don't have your settings set to high or ultra, it's not going to be as visually appealing. It's not going to look as good. But I did give it a 9 out of 10 stars because I did like it so much. I absolutely adore this game. Not a whole lot of replayability, like I said, but it's still like a comfort game. I'm going to continue playing this game, like world exploring. It's going to be a weekend game because I love it so much. So it is going to be going up at the very top, which I'm sure some of you probably saw coming. But I really liked this game. I loved it. So yeah, that wraps up my tier list video. This was a long video, and I applaud anyone who's been able to stick with me through the entire thing. This is my second time recording this video all the way through, because I had my mic set up kind of weird the first time, and as I was editing it, all you could hear was me like breathing into the mic. I was like, no. But because of that, I've like no voice, because I've had to talk so much. So I hope you enjoyed my voice, because you had to listen to it for the entire video. But yeah, I guess that's really about everything. I have quite a few games that I intend on playing this upcoming year. There's some games that are coming out, the new Suicide Squad game. We're supposed to be getting another Bendy and the Ink Machine game. The next chapter of Poppy Playtime. I'm very excited for what is to come in 2024 and all of the awesome games we'll get to play. It really excites me. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. My Sims channel and my Twitter are both linked down in the description below. If you'd like to check either of those things out, I would greatly appreciate it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you had a wonderful 2023. Thank you for being here with me. This is probably the biggest year I've had on my channel so far. And I've appreciated everyone who has popped in or has stuck around. I look forward to experiencing 2024 with you, and I will see you all next year. Thank you guys.